Those of you who are here in the front just might take a gander. How many people are here this evening for this Vesper service? Really, it's quite impressive. And how many young people. I'm so proud of our young people. The orations they gave today, the videos that they made, the art they did, the poetry they wrote, the creative writing, the number of teens who were at their business meeting, who make it to every service. Really, I'm very grateful to the parents and the godparents and the priests who raise such wonderful young people. You make us proud. Really very proud of you. As Father Constantine said, I have a rather historic topic to talk with you about this evening, and it's not because it's coming from me that's historic. It's the topic which I'm going to address. For the past near century, well, it is a century, this is the 2010. For the past century, Orthodox Christians have been reading about the convening of a great and holy council. What a great and holy council is, for those of us for whom that's a new kind of a term, is a gathering of all the bishops, the Orthodox bishops in the entire world. It's what the First Ecumenical Council was convened as. When the bishops were convened at the invitation by Emperor St. Constantine the Great, back in the year 325, he did not say, you are cordially invited to the First Ecumenical Council. Your presence is required at a great and holy council of the bishops, the hierarchs of Holy Orthodoxy. It's only the second council which deemed the decisions of that first council to be of ecumenical nature, something that the entire church, and that's what ecumenical means. It doesn't mean Presbyterians and Lutherans and Orthodox and Methodists and everybody under the sun. It means something of the ecumeny. And the ecumeny, at that time, was the Christian world, which was an Orthodox world. So it wasn't people of different faiths at all. Ecumenical has taken on a rather deformed kind of meaning, so that the first great and holy council made decisions, including the first several articles of our creed, that the Holy Fathers of the second great and holy council deemed to be of ecumenical or worldwide, for all Christians in the world, importance, and that they held true for all of us. So the title Ecumenical Council is something that is given by subsequent council. It recognizes those decisions as being of ecumenical nature, meaning that they're binding, they reflect the faith of the entire church. And not just entire church in geography, but entire church in history. That what the fathers did at the First Ecumenical Council in the year 325 was in accordance with the belief of the entire church in history. It is the faith that our Savior taught. It is the faith that the apostles preached that had been passed on from generation to generation until the year 325, when the bishops of the church gathered. And 318 fathers, right, Mother Cassiana? There were 318 bishops at that time that gathered for that first council. And we'll remember, this is just a decade or a little more than a decade after Christianity was a recognized and legal faith. It was the faith of the empire. Just a little over a decade prior to that, it had been illegal to be a Christian. So many of the bishops, we have accounts of many of the bishops being carried from the farthest ends of the empire to the city for the meeting. They were being carried in litters because they couldn't walk. Many of them had their tendons cut as they were persecuted for the faith. Bishops came missing limbs, missing eyes. Some came they couldn't speak because their tongues had been cut out. These were real confessors of the faith who attended that first council. Among those who were at the first council was St. Nicholas, the Archbishop of Myra and Lycia, whose memory we keep on December the 6th. There were 7 councils like that were convened, not like our annual conferences. We get together because we love each other, just to see each other. These councils were convened for very specific reasons, and the earliest councils were convened to defend the truth of the Orthodox faith. There were those who were preaching lies, which we now know as, we call them heresies, wrong opinions. They were passing falsehood off as truth, and it was dangerous. Our Lord said, you'll know the truth and it makes you free. Not things I think about, not errors and not heresy. Truth is important to us as Christians because our God is a God of truth. Our God revealed himself so that we would know these saving things about him. We don't have to guess. We don't have to speculate. He sent his only begotten Son so that we would know it for sure. We have a clear path to heaven. Everything that's necessary for our salvation has been clearly revealed to us. God is the Lord and hath revealed himself to us. And that's why those councils were convened. Well, in the year 1910, I remember reading in an article from the then Al-Kalimat, which is the Word magazine, established by our Father among the Saints, St. Raphael, as bishop here in this country. They were talking about convening a great and holy council in the year 1910, and the whole Orthodox world got very excited. It was going to be convened on the holy mountain of Athos. Well, in the intervening years, crisis hit the entire world, but most especially the Orthodox world. World War I came along, and it was devastating to the entire world, but most especially the Orthodox world. What came in the wake of World War I was the fall of the Russian Empire. And it passed from being Holy Russia to becoming Soviet Russia, and soon the Soviet Union. Many of the Orthodox nations that were adjacent to Holy Russia and had been under their protection became servant states of the Soviet Union. Countries like Georgia, that dates their Christianity back to St. Nino, back to the 4th century. Became parts and servants of the Soviet Empire. It was devastating to the Orthodox world. Shortly after that, communism began to take over in other parts of Eastern Europe, and by the time the Second World War was over, and certain years after that, the vast majority of Orthodox Christians were living either under the yoke of communism, or as they had for many centuries and many centuries later, they still are, some of them, living under the yoke of Islam. So that great and holy council was never convened. And people like the newly glorified saint of the Serbian church, Blessed Saint Justin Popovic, was very grateful that that great and holy council was not being convened. Why? Because he felt that many of the bishops who would come to that council would not be free to speak their true heart. That many of them would be under great pressure to do that which was politically expedient, for fear that if they did not, that their flocks back home would even endure greater persecution. St. Justin was very grateful that the Great and Holy Council had not been convened while the church was undergoing such dark days. He said we should wait. And just like the first ecumenical council was convened in 325 after the fall of the pagan Roman Empire and the rise of the Christian Roman Empire, so too he believed that it would be best for the church if the Great and Holy Council was delayed until such time as Orthodox Christians were free. The vast majority, certainly not all would be free, but the vast majority would be free, so that those bishops coming would not be afraid to stand up and speak the truth, to speak that which was on their heart. Over a decade ago now, there began to be a series of pre-conciliar meetings held in a small suburb of Geneva, Switzerland called Chambézy. C-H-A-M-B like Basil, E-S like Sam, Y. Chambézy. You've probably never heard of it, most of you, but it's going to become very famous in our world Orthodox history. There is there an inter-Orthodox center. It was established decades ago where Orthodox could come from all over the world to a politically neutral country, Switzerland, where they could have inter-Orthodox meetings without any government, anybody interfering. And for many Orthodox leaders, and lay people as well met there, it was one of the few places in the world where they knew they could meet, that there was not, well, in Russia they called him Boris, the guy who listened in all the hotel rooms, and it was a place where they could go and freely speak. Anyway, a series of 4 meetings have been held there, attended by representatives of all the independent Orthodox churches in the world. Not independent from each other in faith, but independent from each other in administration, meaning that they are autocephalous. Auto meaning self, and cephalus from the Greek word kephalos, which means headed. So they're self-headed churches. That includes the ancient patriarchates. The Patriarchate of Constantinople, which is first in honor and primacy. The second of the ancient patriarchates is the Patriarchate of Alexandria in Egypt and all Africa. The third in honor and dignity in the ancient patriarchates is our own patriarchate, the Apostolic See of St. Peter in Antioch and all the East. The fourth is the city of Jerusalem, the Patriarchate of Jerusalem and all Palestine. Those are the 4 ancient patriarchates of the Orthodox world. After that comes what we call the modern patriarchates. The modern, for us, I mean, that's the last 200 years, that's pretty modern for us. The modern patriarchates include, and if I forget, somebody please help me, Serbia, the Church of Serbia. The Church of Russia is number 5. It's the first of the modern patriarchates in honor and dignity. The Church of Russia, the Patriarchate of Moscow. The Patriarchate of Serbia, the Patriarchate of Romania, the Patriarchate of Bulgaria, the Patriarchate Catholicocate of Georgia. You all know where Georgia is? I'm 62, so I don't know, maybe some of you who are my age or a little bit older will remember Bagrat Topagwa. He was an old Georgian man that they interviewed for Dan and Yogurt commercials. And he came from Georgia, and they would show him eating, and he was like 100 years old. And he said, "I love Dan and Yogurt, and so does my mother." And they would show his mother. Some of the oldest people in the world live in the country of Georgia. It's one of the Caucasian nations in the Caucasus near Armenia. But it's been an Orthodox country since the 4th century. And it's an autocephalous church. Have I forgotten some autocephalous churches? The other modern ones include Czechia and Slovakia. The Church of what used to be Czechoslovakia is 2 nations. Czechia, or the Czech lands, and Slovakia is an autocephalous church. Poland, the Orthodox Church of Poland is an autocephalous church. No, not Finland yet. Have I forgotten any? Albania, the Church of Greece, thank you. The Church of Cyprus, which, like Georgia, is a daughter church of the Patriarchate of Antioch. Anyway, you got the idea. It's all the Orthodox churches in the world that are self-headed. They sent delegates to Chambézy 4 times. The latest meeting was held last year, 2009, at this inter-Orthodox center outside Geneva. The purpose of those meetings, they were called pre-conciliar meetings, was to make plans for this great and holy council. Where will it be held? What will be the agenda items? Are we getting together just because it's nice to get together, like the people in Dawama? I mean, is there a real reason we need to get together? Our history says that we get together for very important reasons, not just hayallah, because we like each other. We can visit each other anytime. But why a great and holy council? They said the most important, or one of the most important, and it is because it will be the first agenda item whenever that great and holy council meets, is how do we deal with these multi-million Orthodox Christians who live outside the geographic territories of the mother churches? What do we do with those, some say 2, some say 6 million Orthodox Christians in the United States? What do we do with those 6 million Orthodox Christians in Brazil? What do we do with the people in Western Europe, the Orthodox there? In Canada, in Central America, in Australia, in the Far East? What do we do with them? None of them are residing in the territory that falls very clearly under one of the established Orthodox churches, either the ancient patriarchates, the modern patriarchates, or even some of the modern autonomous churches. The Church of Japan, Orthodox Christians in Japan are an autonomous church. The Orthodox Christians in Finland, they are an autonomous church. But what do you do with all of these multi-millions of Orthodox Christians? And not only those who, I don't know, their ancestors came from the Church of Greece, their ancestors came from the Church of Russia. And not just the majority of you, whose ancestors came from England and Ireland and Scotland and Germany and Wales and Italy and Mexico and you name it. Just the tabbouleh of nations here in America. Even more important, what do we do with the Native Americans in Alaska? 25,000 of them, whose families came from nowhere except right there. What do we call those places? How do we deal with them? How is it that we can have 7 Orthodox bishops in Chicago, each claiming to be the bishop or metropolitan or archbishop of Chicago? How many bishops do we have who claim the title New York? The mother churches realized that that was necessary in a historical context. They were established to take care of these nascent Orthodox Christian communities which sprung up in all the places of immigration. For a number of years, they referred to that phenomenon of Orthodox Christians outside the territories, geographic territories, for which mother churches, independent, either autocephalous or autonomous churches, had been established. They called us the diaspora. Diaspora is a concept from the Old Covenant. It means the dispersion of God's people, and under the Old Covenant, that were the Jews, the dispersion of the people of God from the Holy Land throughout the world. So that the Jews at the time of Christ who lived in Alexandria, there were more Jews living outside Palestine than inside Palestine. The Jews who lived in Alexandria were considered to be Jews living in dispersion from their homeland. And I don't know if you have Jewish friends or neighbors, or if you ever watched any movies that have, well, you live in this country, it's hard not to, watch things that have some Jewish influence. You know, they always say for Passover, next year in Jerusalem. That means they're in dispersion. You know, they have their heart set on land, and we know the trouble that that's set. We live in this world. We, the new Israel, live in this world, but we're not of this world. If we look forward to going anywhere from where we are, because God planted us here, it's good to be here. If we look forward to going anywhere, it's the kingdom that's not of this world. We call it the Holy Land, but there is no soil that's more holy than another. This whole earth is holy. It's made by God, and our teenagers taught us that this afternoon. So that very important fact is facing now our mother churches. What do we do with them? We need to come up with a way to grant them their own autocephaly or their own autonomy so that they can constitute the Church of Christ, the Orthodox Church, where they live, so that there's no tags anymore. I mean, we live in Wichita. We're fortunate in many ways, but the most important way is that we only have 2 Orthodox jurisdictions there, and one of the jurisdictions doesn't function all the time. It's a tiny little church of another jurisdiction that's closed for 3 months of the year. The other 9 months of the year, they bring in a priest, a retired priest, once, maybe twice a month. So we don't live the tragedy of multi-jurisdictionalism like they do in other places in this country. Doesn't exist in Dripping Springs. If you live in the Arab Dripping Springs, you go to St. Sophia. That's it. Whether you're Greek, you're Russian, you're Mexican, you're German, you're Orthodox, that's your parish church. Same thing in Norman. Oklahoma City, they have a few jurisdictions. There's Antiochians, there's Russians, there's Ukrainians, and there's Greek. Did I miss anybody? Ukrainian. Salina, it's us or nobody. Kearney, Nebraska, it's us or nobody. Santa Fe, little Santa Fe, has us, has the Greeks, and has the Russians. Is anybody else? You know, most of us live in areas where maybe we're either the only Orthodox presence or we're one of a few, a handful, 3, maybe 4 jurisdictions. If you go to Chicago, you'll find Orthodox Christians of 13 different jurisdictions, each with its own bishop. 7 of which live in Chicago and claim Chicago to be their see. It's a real mess canonically. It frustrates us, this tragedy of multi-jurisdictionalism. It frustrates us in trying to do something as bishops and priests and deacons and lay people when our identity is Orthodox Christians. Later on, I mean, if we say that we're Antiochian, we'll say that to a Serb. That's sort of like in-house description of who we are. We don't tell that to the world. The world has a hard enough time figuring out what's an Orthodox Christian, let alone an Antiochian Orthodox Christian or a Serbian Orthodox Christian. So the mother churches have recognized that as being a very important item that needs to be addressed, one of many that it's worthwhile, not only worthwhile, that demands that there be a holy and great council. I'm sure you've heard over the past number of years that you've been involved in Holy Orthodoxy, either from your birth or baptism as an infant or just as your reception into the church as an adult or an adolescent. This cry, this urgent cry for administrative unity in this country. When will we unite? Not in faith and doctrine and dogma. We have that. We always have. And it's clear to know who is Orthodox and who's not. If we can't share communion with you, you're not Orthodox. Very clear. But when will we be united as a church? When will we stop sending 3 bishops to visit Santa Fe, New Mexico? One of the first visits to you, Father John, I made, I was so impressed. The OCA church closed and came. The Greek church, I don't remember if it closed, but they all came to eat afterwards with us, so that the whole Orthodox community of Santa Fe was there to welcome me. I was so touched and so honored until I found out something. I said, this is great. I would hope you would do this all the time. They said, oh, Sayyidina, we did. We do. Last week we did this when Metropolitan Isaiah came to visit St. Elias Church. And we're going to do it again next week when Archbishop Dimitri comes to visit St. Dimitri Church. Isn't that a shame? That they functioned as Orthodox Christians without any kind of a label until the bishop shows up. And then all of a sudden you have to raise this jurisdictional flag. You know, that's not only ineffective, it doesn't only hinder our church from being an effective witness to the gospel here, it's near a heresy. You know, the bishop, in every heartbeat of the Holy Orthodox Church from apostolic times until now, is that the bishop is the focus of unity. He is the symbol of the unity between various congregations. What's the sign that Rita from Erie, Colorado, and Father Peter from Dripping Spring, Texas share the same faith? They have the same bishop. The bishop is that flagpole, if you wish, not of jurisdictional diversity, but the flagpole of the Church of Christ around which all the faithful are to gather. And here we find in America that we are really the living witnesses of the disunity of this church. Well, the 4th meeting, preconciliar meeting, held in Chambézy, Switzerland, in June of last year, June 6 to 13, 2009, and attended by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the heads of 14 autocephalous churches. Our representative there from the Church of Antioch was the Metropolitan of Western Europe, Metropolitan John Yaji. Each of the autocephalous churches sent a delegate, not just a representative, someone who could speak for them, someone who would speak in behalf of the entire Church of Antioch or the entire Church of Greece, and not listen and go home and report, but someone who had the power and the authority of their church behind them to make decisions. They met and they came up with 2 very important documents. One addresses the Orthodox diaspora. And if you'll allow me for a few moments just to skim through this. The 4th Preconciliar Pan-Orthodox Conference was convened by His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew with a consensus of their beatitudes. The primates of all the most holy Orthodox churches expressed during their sacred synoxes at the Fanar in October 2008. It affirmed that it is the common will of all the most holy Orthodox churches that the problem of the Orthodox diaspora be resolved as quickly as possible. They said that last June. And that it be organized, the Orthodox diaspora, in accordance with Orthodox ecclesiology and canonical tradition and practice of the Orthodox Church. Likewise, it is affirmed that during the present phase, it is not possible for historical or pastoral reasons for an immediate transition to the strictly canonical order of the Church, that is, the existence of one bishop in one territory. For this reason, the conference came to the decision to propose the creation of a temporary, got it, temporary, situation that will prepare the ground for a strictly canonical solution of the problem. 2, the conference proposes that for the transitional period, where the canonical solution of the issue will be prepared, not maybe, but will be prepared, Episcopal assemblies of all canonically recognized bishops in each geographic region will be created in each of the regions defined below. Those representatives of all of our mother churches divided the entire world outside those areas which have their own autocephalous or autonomous churches into 12 regions. They are, the first has to do with us, it's nice, North America and Central America. South America, Australia, New Zealand, Oceania is the third. Great Britain and Ireland is the fourth. There are 12 of those. Last month, the very last days of May, following the Feast of Pentecost, the week following the Feast of Pentecost, we Orthodox bishops, all of us in America, were called to, we were summoned to, not nicely invited, we were nicely summoned to, the first Episcopal Assembly for the North American and Central American region. There were 55 of us who were able to be there. There were probably another 11 who were unable to be there. One is Archbishop Alipi of the Russian Church, who lives in Chicago. He's in a wheelchair for years. He can't come. Another was Bishop Daniel of the Old Believers of Erie, Pennsylvania, who recently died, so he couldn't come. The Metropolitan of the Ukrainian Orthodox in Canada, because he just recently announced his retirement. There were several others. Bishop Metropolitan Maximus, the Greek Orthodox Bishop of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, could not come because of illness. Metropolitan Sotirios, the Greek Orthodox Metropolitan for Canada, could not attend. He had no voice. He has no idea why his vocal cords froze. Not even a whisper. Absolutely nothing. So there were some who could not attend. 2 other bishops of the Serbian Church, 3, George of Canada, Mitrofan of Pittsburgh, Longin of the Midwest, were in Serbia. They didn't get back in time because they had their Holy Synod meeting in Serbia. The other 2 did show up. Metropolitan Christopher, who's a native of Texas, by the way, y'all. He's American born in Texas. And the second one is Bishop Maxim, the Serbian bishop for Western America. Of those invited, I believe it was 60-some, 55 were at the meeting. It was a very historic meeting. Every canonical Orthodox bishop in the United States was either present or had a very good reason not to be there. We saw at that meeting the close, I don't want to say demise because that sounds negative, but the falling asleep is probably a good way to say it, the falling asleep of SCOBA. This is their 50th anniversary, the Standing Conference of Orthodox Bishops in the Americas. SCOBA is no more. It's been superseded by what is called the Episcopal Assembly of North and Central America. Episcopal doesn't mean Episcopalian. Episcopal comes from 2 Greek words, which mean overseers. Simply means a bishop. That's what a bishop is. I am an episkopos. I oversee. So this was an assembly of all the bishops, the hierarchs of the Orthodox Church in America. It was presided over, convened by, and presided over by His Eminence Archbishop Demetrius, who is the senior bishop of the Ecumenical Patriarchate in that region, Canada, the United States, Mexico, and Central America. Why the Greek? Why the representative of the Ecumenical Patriarchate? Because in the order of the churches, if you remember, the honorary primacy, the first church goes to Constantinople. So that's the chairman. In all of those areas of the world where there is a hierarch of the Ecumenical Patriarchate in those 12 different regions, The senior hierarch of the ecumenical patriarchate, if there is one, will preside, so that we don't have to vote. There's no egos involved in this. This is done like we stand at the holy table, from senior to junior. And if you're a junior priest, you know it's the best place to be at the holy table. Second is the Church of Alexandria, as I mentioned. And the senior hierarch of the Church of Alexandria in this region would be the first vice chairman. There is no Alexandrian presence in this region. So it goes to the third church, which is the Church of Antioch. The senior bishop of the Church of Antioch in this region would become first vice chairman. That's our Metropolitan Philip. So again, it was assigned by what's called the diptychs, the way that we commemorate the churches. Diptychs come from, again, two Greek words combined, and it means just two panels, two parts. One part you list all the living, one part you list all the dead. And you list the living in order of their primacy, their seniority. The third church would have been the Church of Jerusalem. So the senior bishop for the Church of Jerusalem in this region, if there was any, would have become the second vice chairman. There is none. So you go to the next church on the list, which is the Church of Russia. So the senior bishop of the Russian Patriarchate in this region automatically became second vice chairman. The secretary was nominated and elected, and it was by acclamation. It was me. The treasurer was done the same way, nominated and elected by acclamation. It's Archbishop Anthony of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. There was such joy at this meeting with the 55 bishops, some of which, very few of which didn't know English. Very, very few didn't know English. One had to have a translator. The other few understood but weren't great in speaking. I looked around the room. There were bishops with not one white whisker in their beard or in their hair. Young bishops. Many, many, many. I would say the vast majority born here. That was not true when we were back in other Orthodox bishops' meetings. God rest their souls. Many of those bishops who were in Ligonier in 1994 have reposed. There are many, many Canadian and American Orthodox bishops who are sons of this earth, this land, this soil, and sons of Holy Orthodoxy here. Our purpose for meeting is to prepare our church in this region to become a united, administratively united Orthodox church. The day is coming. Everything that you've been praying for and everything you've been asking questions, why not, when, it's coming. And it's coming very soon. I have no date, so don't ask me when. But it's really nearer today than it was yesterday. We don't have any time to waste. We Orthodox in America especially. I don't know about Canada or Mexico or that, but here we've griped for a long time. You know, we want this. What are the mother churches delaying for? Why won't they do this? What's the matter with the mother churches? Others have even said more awful things about the mother churches. And here, they were preparing for this. And now that it's here, and they convened us, that's what's great. They convened us, which means they've already blessed it. We have the minutes from their meeting. They've already blessed it. And they have asked us, look, y'all, you want this? All you people in the world, you Orthodox people, get to work, make the plans for it, because when the Great and Holy Council comes, you bishops who all come from America, United States, all 55 of you, we want you to come with a plan that we can consider and bless. And if it's blessable, you got it. If it's not blessable, we'll come up with a plan, and you still got it. The time is here, brothers and sisters. This is really very exciting news. I would ask that you prayerfully consider this matter. It's no more wishing and hoping. It's here. The time is here. To tell you the truth, many of the bishops who were at that meeting were a little bit frightened that we don't have enough time. You know, now that it's really here, you say, oh my Lord. We talked about it. It was nice to criticize and, you know, why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? It's okay, do it. When the door is opened, we need be ready. And that doesn't mean the bishops. We're one part of it. One part of an entire church, of a body that's comprised of all of you and all of the other Orthodox Christians in this country. For your information, the bishops of Canada are going to request that they become their own Episcopal assembly so that they become their own Canadian Orthodox Church. The bishops of Mexico, which is part of North America, not Central America, it's geographically North America, have asked that they be put together with Central America, with the South American nations, that historically and linguistically and other ways they have more in common. So that would leave us, Orthodox Christians, in the United States. Why did the bishops meet without priests and deacons and lay people? And it was closed meetings. Nobody was allowed in except bishops. It's not because we did anything secret. I'm telling you everything we did. It was so that we, who met each other, many of us, for the very first time, could get our act together. Before we go to our clergy, before we go to our people, we needed to have all of our bishops' hearts beating to the same rhythm. It was a beautiful sight to see, the goodwill. It was palpable in that room. I don't know if you waste your time reading blogs, Orthodox blogs on the internet. If you do, don't. You don't have that much time. If you have time that you can sit down and read the Holy Scripture or read the lives of the saints. Be edified. Don't take part in that gossip, because most of them don't know what they're talking about. I was at the meeting. And some of the things people have sent me that's been written about the meeting, I don't know where they thought they were. Some said we lived in luxury. This hotel is much more luxurious than where we were. It wasn't a bad hotel. I mean, go there. It's the Helmsley Park Lane. It's managed by a Greek Orthodox Christian. That's why we went there. We got very good rates. But it's not an outstanding, luxurious hotel. It's not. There are Holiday Inns and Marriotts that were much nicer. It was a decent place where you would want to take your family and where the bishop should go. That there was problems between bishops. There was none. The only problems that we have is dealing with people who said we had problems. Everyone was there. The bishops of Rocor, which a couple of years ago would not have been there. They were not in communion with the rest of us. Were there en masse, and they participated in everything. Discussions, prayers, meals. The best part of the assembly, aside from the prayers, was the meals that we took together, when we really got to know our brother bishops from all different jurisdictions. No seats were assigned for breakfast and lunch. Dinner was assigned because they wanted to be sure they would mix us up. Turned out they didn't have to do that. We automatically did that. The love, the goodwill was palpable. There was great humility there. You know, we had metropolitans, some of which are very old in age and in ordination, who were sitting at the far end of the table, while much younger bishops were sitting ahead of them. Why? Because the churches were seated by the presvia, meaning their seniority. All the bishops of Constantinople sat first. All the churches of Antioch sat second. All the churches of Russia sat third. So again, there was no ego involved. And our places were marked for us. Even the area that was assigned, for instance, for the bishops of the Church of Antioch, Bishop Antun's name was first. He had to sit there. I couldn't go sit there because I wanted to sit next to some Greek bishop there. It was all very orderly. In fulfillment of what the Holy Apostle Paul says, let everything be done decently and in order. There was no room for ego. There was no room for hard feelings, for pride. So in addition to goodwill, which was a hallmark of that, humility was a hallmark of that. Love was a hallmark of that. I ask all of you to get ready to receive very good news. We're going to be announcing committees, some very important committees. I don't like maybe to prioritize and say what I think is the most important, but what I think is the most important is the committee that will sit down and prayerfully consider what this church in America will look like. What will be the plan we will take to that great and holy council? Very specifically, what will be the plan that will make us an administratively united church in this country, so that our life outside the holy sacraments will reflect the unity which we have in faith and in the holy sacraments. That's an important committee. These committees will not be just comprised of bishops. We have to volunteer first. I mean, it's an odd parent who assigns all the chores in the house to the children and himself doesn't do any chore. So the bishops will volunteer first for the committees. But we also know that the church is not just us. What's a bishop without priests and deacons and lay people and old people and young people and children? Somebody who dresses funny and looks in the mirror and calls himself your eminence or your grace. I mean, that's not the church. Everyone, the talents of everyone will be needed. It's my hope. And if the Episcopal Assembly as a body can't do it, I would hope that in Dawama we would do it. I would foresee a need to have, like, regional, in our own country now, geographic town hall meetings. That, for instance, one be held at St. Elijah in Oklahoma City, and all the Orthodox parishes of Oklahoma be invited there. A formal presentation be told about the Episcopal Assembly so everybody knows, and you don't have to believe rumors you read where you shouldn't be going in the first place. That one be held in Houston, Texas, for instance, in different places, so that Orthodox Christians can get ownership in this, I don't want to say a dream or a hope or a vision. It's not. It's a reality. One that is demanded of us by our church to be an effective, living witness for the gospel, where we don't have to explain anymore. Whereas Greek Orthodox, like Antiochian Orthodox, or you're like Russian Orthodox, we will simply be the Orthodox Christians, no matter what our color, no matter what our ethnic background, our identification will be this, and that's it. One among each other and to the face of America and the world. The day's coming, brothers and sisters. One of the rumors I heard, I'm not going to tell you the year because you'll get too excited, but it's really very close. It frightens me, the one rumor I heard, how close it is. But I would ask for your prayers, not just for us, but for you, for your children, for those yet to be born, that God really would raise up His holy church here in power. We've existed here. We're not going to make it church. The church has been here. But that He raises us up now in power. We need it for our salvation, and God knows that our country needs it for its salvation. That we be prayerful about this, that we be careful in every little detail about this, that we go slowly. Don't drag our feet, but that we go slowly because we're being careful. This is the body of Christ we're talking about. Be prayerful, be careful, to come with humility. Each of us is going to be asked to give up something for the greater good of the whole body. Something that we might hold dear. But that happens when a man marries a woman. Each one has to give up something so that they find something even better. So prayerful, careful, to come in humility, to come with love. No arrogance, to come with great humility, to come with patience. We're going to need patience. Would that this would happen tomorrow, but there's too much work to be done for it to happen tomorrow. Your invitation to participate in this is coming very soon. It needs to be talked about. You need to talk about this with your priests, with your parishes. What will we do? How can we do this? We need all of your expertise. When we have a legal department, we're going to need attorneys, not just well-intentioned bishops. We need attorneys, men and women who know that. When we have the canonical department or committee, we need canonists. And that's not even clergy sometimes. The greatest canonists in the world are lay people, men and women who have studied canon law. We need that input. That's the good news, brothers and sisters. The day is very close at hand. I would hope that we would be prepared for the great gift that our mother churches are about to give to us as a gift from God Almighty.